This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. And let me tell you, it feels like a long time since we last spoke, maybe because unlike 2 days ago, we didn't do 4 or 5 videos in a day, and we've already taken 24 hours off for the first time this month, following a little camping trip out to Sundre. So a good start to July, I guess you could say, and obviously the Oilers have had a good start to July, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you're up for it, just kind of discussing all about how the Oilers have really made themselves better despite not doing anything sizable other than signing Connor Brown. Before we get there though, friends, if you are new to the channel, I'm going to look down just so as I can hit my new fancy graphic that I designed up here over the past weekend, as I'd love to have you hit that subscribe button if you are new to Dolany TV. It would be greatly appreciated to have you along, because we've got a long season ahead of ourselves and it's shaping up to be a good one based on how July 1st and into kind of the last 24-48 hours have played out for the Edmonton Oilers, looking at how the rest of the offseason will shape up. That's kind of the thing, right? Is you kind of look how day 1, day 2 went and kind of get a sense of how the rest of the things are going to go. So what we know for the Edmonton Oilers currently is you've got Evan Bouchard, you've got Ryan McLeod, and Raphael Lavoie unsigned as of currently when I'm recording this video. Okay, well, that's what we know. And we know those 3 players have to and will be the priority from Ken Holland. We know that we talked about the Bob Stauffer tweet yesterday saying the Oilers need a 4th-line centerman. The Oilers are looking for a 4th-line centerman, and we will find that eventually, but it still is order of operations. I guess actually, sorry to use a proper term, sequence of operations. Sign your RFAs first, figure out your remaining cap space, sign 4th-line center. Now, what also Bob Stauffer left open was signing maybe a speedy, gritty, hard-hitting, whatever kind of winger that we could potentially get in the free agent market. I'm sure there's a lot of those out there. So there's a ton of different things the Oilers could do here with limited cap space. But what I want to take you through before we get to any of that is just how successful the Oilers' free agency offseason thus far has been based on what they've done in less than 72 hours. Day 1, you needed to fix the right wing situation, right? The right wing situation, you lose Yamamoto, who a lot of fans really didn't care to have anymore anyway. So for the contract, for the player, whatever you didn't like, you've gotten rid of it, right? That does not make the Oilers worse by any means, because you add in Connor Brown, who comes in incentive-based, health-insured, more or less, by that 10-game plateau to receive his bonuses. The bonuses structured, maybe you don't like it, maybe you do like it, but if the Oilers play their cards right and have cap space left over at the end of the year, it takes off of there first and then goes into next year's overages. So it's actually not as bad as it could possibly be for the Edmonton Oilers at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, sure, if you cap out and you're in the LTIR, Connor Brown plays 10 games, it's a nightmare situation next year if the cap doesn't go up 3, 4, 5 million. But we don't need to worry about next June 25th yet, okay? We don't need to do that as of currently, because let me tell you, that's a year away. And if you're worrying about what's a year away when we got a Stanley Cup to win in early June next year, you're worrying a bit too much. So when it comes down to Connor Brown at current, right, he is a perfect fit. Good buddies with Connor McDavid, proven 20-goal scorer over the track record of his career. You look at a couple of years where he probably could have hit it based on some numbers, or was close to hitting it based on the numbers. So, right, you're talking about a guy who's going to add that punch, that finish that everybody wanted from Kailer Yamamoto. So you upgrade on Yamamoto. Now you lose Klim Kostin, but Bob Stauffer's talking about it. The Oilers media is talking about it. You can find that guy, right? I think what everybody's mistaking here is everybody thinks the Oilers had Klim Kostin day 1 of free agency last year, and we did not have Klim Kostin until we decided we did not have a spot for Dmitry Samorukov in training camp, and shipped off Kostin over to St. Louis, or shipped off Samorukov for Kostin to St. Louis, and did that in September. Okay, I was doing that video on my way to brunch in September. That's how long ago, yet how soon ago that was. Klim Kostin was not an immediate Edmonton Oiler on July 1st. So there is no need, just because we've lost him because we couldn't afford him, to say the Oilers got worse by losing him as of July 3rd. And this is kind of where I'm going to be preaching this whole video, is the Oilers have plenty of time, plenty of options, plenty of ways to still make something happen. And until we get to that opening night roster on the game against the Canucks in October, we actually don't know if this team is worse on paper or better on paper than last year. And let me tell you, no matter what, this team will be just as good on paper come mid-October. But as we go, that's Connor Brown, that's the Klim Kostin situation, right? You look at the two depth forwards we signed, Lane Peterson and Drake Caggiula. Two guys that over the past few years are proven to be able to play NHL minutes. I'm not going to say do much more than that, right? We're not talking about two guys that are changing the complexion of your team. But that's not why we're talking about them. I'm talking about them because everybody's saying the Oilers got smaller. The Oilers got easier to play against. They don't have any pushback. Guys, these guys aren't NHL players. These aren't the guys that we're going to go run in the lineup for 82 games a season, right? We're not running these guys out there in game one of the playoffs against the Vegas Golden Knights or the Calgary Flames or the LA Kings or the Anaheim Ducks or the Vancouver Canucks or whoever comes out of the Pacific for us in the first round this year. That's not the situation here. Lane Peterson and Drake Caggiula are not full-time NHL players for the Oilers. Heck, they will likely not even play more than 15 games apiece for the Oilers this year. And you want to talk about the regular season meaning nothing because you got to win in the playoffs? Why are we worried about these guys playing 15 games in the playoff or regular season, right? We're not. We shouldn't be. End of discussion, right? So what those guys do, they don't add size. They don't add grit. They don't need to. That's not their purpose. They insulate the Bakersfield Condors to allow our prospects to develop, to have guys that can fill the net themselves, take some prospect weight off of the youngsters, allow them to develop maybe more of their overall game. And again, right, that Ken Holland master plan, go from green banana to yellow banana and allow our guys to bloom and flourish at the minor level before coming up to the pro level and getting eaten alive by Oilers fans, as is tradition over the past 20 plus years, right? So that's where we're looking right now, is these are key pieces of the organization, but they're not key pieces of the Edmonton Oilers NHL team. That's where we're at. Then you look on the defense, right? This is all still July 1st. The defense, Ben Gleason and, of course, Noel Hoffenmeyer, right? These are two guys upside. I think Hoffenmeyer has much more upside than Gleason, to be honest with you. But both guys with upside, both guys who can fill in a spot start. You can give them time if you need a minimum cap player to fill a hole, right? You never know when you need 775 on the roster instead of 867 or 887 or whatever the case might be. So just to save that cap space going towards trade deadline day, if you have an injury and one of these guys is riding hot, I believe it'll be Hoffenmeyer over Gleason, but two guys that insulate the left-hand side of the defense in Bakersfield and allow the Oilers to have a little bit pressure off when they recall somebody from the Condors, because then the Condors and Keith Gretzky aren't scrambling to fill out a defensive roster for their next game, right? That's the key here, is the Oilers have to allow the prospect farm system not to be under stress to develop the prospects properly, and that's what Gleason and Hoffenmeyer will do, while also being guys that could potentially be something, right? Whether you end up trading them, whether you end up using them at the NHL level, whatever the case might be, you can somehow, some way find some value in them. And I think if you look kind of on Hoffenmeyer's career trajectory and you look at some of the articles over the past year or two, there was talk that he could be a useful member of the Toronto Maple Leafs coming up. So if the Leafs are thinking they had something in them, at least Leafs media, then there is potential that the Oilers see something more in Hoffenmeyer than just a guy who is filling in and filling out the roster at the Bakersfield Condors AHL level. So that's where that is, right? That's huge. Now day 2, right? Quiet day, easy day. All they do is announce the terms on Ben Gleason. We find out, yes, the Oilers are still in the market for a fourth line centerman. But again, right, this is good. This is hush, right? Nothing major. We don't have fires going off about the offer sheets for Evan Bouchard coming in or offer sheets for Ryan McLeod coming in, right? There's still some chatter, there's still some talk, there's still, well, this could happen, that could happen, this could be going on, this could be going on. But there's no alarms, there's no fires, which is exactly to plan, right? Now you can just methodically move through the off season and do what's next step by step. Obviously, the next two things up, I think, as opposed to last year, Ken Holland will want to sign Ryan McLeod and, of course, Evan Bouchard sooner rather than later. Offset that risk of an offer sheet, but also go out there and do the situation where you figure out your cap before all the players that you potentially could find value in for $1 million to $800,000, right? Instead of having to sign league minimum, the value players that still need a roster spot but aren't AHL replacement players, you can still find them before they're signed somewhere else. And obviously the Oilers would like to do that at the right time, so signing McLeod and Bouchard probably the go-ahead kind of situation to that. So that's where we find ourselves, right? We're just over 2.5 days into the offseason, and well, free agency, real start of next year, whatever you want to say. And the Oilers so far have been successful. They have not done anything to get worse. They have not done anything sizable to change the course of next year. But again, right? Why do we need to change the course of next year when we've been to the second round, game 6, and game 4 of the third round in the past 2 years? That's pretty good success. I think we're a little blinded by the fact that we got Connor McDavid, that as Oilers fans, we've been to the playoffs every single year since 1920, and we've been beyond the first round 2 years in a row when Leafs fans are celebrating their first second round appearance since like 04 or something. Hey, guess what? That's huge. Let's take that victory and let's enjoy it a little bit here and stop stressing about what's going on day 1 of free agency and how that's going to determine if the Oilers make the playoffs in 24. Because that, like day 1, I'm going to tell you, we've been very successful. We've done it exactly well. It's tactical, perfect, considered. Everything is just kind of hunky-dory as to what you needed to do in the first 3 days so far. And guess what? Now it's move by move by move, right? I'd expect you get a PTO, not necessarily a tough guy, but a PTO for a guy that's going to throw hits, bang bodies, and hurt people out there. Not like break bones or anything, but just slow them down, make them think, right? Do the typical grinder hockey thing. And then, of course, too, right, you're going to go out there and get some PTOs, maybe for a defenseman, right? That's all training camp stuff. We got 2 months to worry about that still. But at the same rate, too, you're going to find your Bouchard and McLeod and Raphael Lavoie contracts, and then you're going to go out there and find your fourth-line center, and it's all going to wrap up just nice and shapely and all good. Because for the end of the day, for the Oilers, is what you do by opening night doesn't really matter. Okay, that's the other side, right? What the Oilers did by opening night last year was not enough to get to the second round, game 6. If we did not acquire Matthias Ekholm, if we did not acquire Nick Bjugstad, you would not have gotten where you've gotten to. That's plain as day. So that's where the Oilers find themselves right now, is you don't have to make your final chess moves on July 3rd to win the Stanley Cup, July 3rd, 2023, to win the Stanley Cup June 14th, 2024. So when I say the Oilers have been successful through the first 3 days of free agency, that doesn't mean that they have done the job. That just means they've had a good first 3 days, and that's something we can sit back, enjoy a little bit, and wait for the next trickles through to come, right? I think maybe, you know what? You want to have a little hope for tomorrow, whether it be Bouchard or McLeod. Ken Holland has a track record of 10 a.m. to noon. Depends. I guess you could say noon Eastern or noon Mountain Time. Somewhere in there, Ken Holland likes to do some business, right? He gets up, gets in the recliner about 8 a.m., reads the newspaper, whatever you might have it. It just seems like he's got a really good routine. I'm not trying to make fun of the guy. It just seems Ken Holland has got a very structured routine as general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, and it seems like every single time there's news, it seems to follow the same exact way every single time. So we'll again see if there is going to be any action tomorrow between 10 a.m. and noon tomorrow morning as we get set up for our day, right? We're just about to lunch break at work. You'll probably see me live in the car if anything happens. So we'll see what the Edmonton Oilers do, friends. But I'm Tyson, this is Stolany TV. I've talked long enough. It's another 15-minute video for absolutely no reason. Talked your ear off about absolutely nothing but me feeling like we've had a good 3 days. So you continue to have a good rest of your July long weekend. Friends in the States, happy Independence Day tomorrow. I'll be working, but that's the joys of our day being on July 1st. Friends, I am up on out of here.